Hey guys, welcome back to All Around OT. So today I am breaking down the specific test exam materials that I used for boards and why I loved them or why I hated them. So let's jump into it. So the materials that I used and didn't use are TrueLearn, Therapy Ed, NBCOT Study Pack, AOTA, and 450 Formula. The top recommendation I could ever give is use 450 Formula. The bottom I could ever give is AOTA and TrueLearn. And let's talk about why. So, 450 Formula for content. What I loved, they are so thorough, but they give you just the right amount so you're not overwhelmed. So, use it for everything. The only thing I will caution is for pediatrics. They do a great job in school system. You have to know more milestones than what they give you in their program. Supplement that with something like Therapy Ed. Therapy Ed is good for supplement. It is not good for just straight reading it if you're not a textbook girly. Like me, I'm not a textbook girly. Also 450, I didn't like their Allen cognitive levels that much, but I supplemented with OT Mary just out of preference is what I liked. Everything else about 450, use them your first time, absolutely, 100%. So next, let's talk about TrueLearn. What I didn't like, they don't use OT terminology in their questions, and they kind of give an AI generated feel. If you use the NBCOT study pack, and then you go back to TrueLearn questions, you probably won't like them because they're not really like the actual exam. I wasn't a fan. I was very frustrated taking the questions because my rationale would match their rationale, but my answer wouldn't match their answer, if that makes sense. So I ditched it because it was more frustrating to me than it was helpful. Therapy Ed, I love their study pack and I love their practice questions. Again, I only used the textbook to supplement content areas I was struggling in if I needed more detail. Their questions online are amazing. They're a little bit harder than the actual test, but not a lot harder. So don't let that scare you off. They're really good, and they will redirect you back to the book if it's a certain content. So they'll explain why you got the questions wrong, and if you need more information, where to get that. And they also have a little AI bar, but it only pulls from their textbook. It's not like ChatGPT, where it could pull from anywhere on the internet. It pulls from their textbook. So instead of me having to dig through and look, I can just text a question and it will answer it for me. They also break it down into the 4 domains, and they break their questions down into different content sections. So if you need more cardiopulmonary, you can do that, or neuro, or domain 4. You can do all those, okay? Loved Therapy Ed, could not recommend that one more highly, especially if you need more test comprehension help or practice questions. Lastly, AOTA and NBCOT. AOTA, I just wasn't a fan of their questions. They were a little too easy in some parts. The documents were like reading a textbook for me, so while they were good for supplementation, straight up, it wasn't my vibe to use. Their upper extremity questions were phenomenal. Pair that with 450 Formula, amazing. My school provided that for me. I don't think I would have bought it on my own, but I do think the upper extremity questions really helped me, especially in preparing for the exam. And finally, the NBCOT study pack. Loved it. I think the questions are the closest thing you can get to the actual exam. The closest practice test to the exam is absolutely the 180 practice exam. I will caution, do not take these practice tests lightly. Once you take them, you cannot retake them. So try to save the majority to the end. Any practice tests I took closer to the beginning of my study plan were more like the not 450 Formula, AOTA or Therapy Ed. And then I saved the majority of my NBCOT ones towards the end. Take the 181 as close to your test as you can, and then use those scores to determine whether or not you are ready for your exam. If you have any more questions about any of these study prep programs, let me know. And that was just my fast kind of analysis of them all and what I liked and didn't like. Thanks guys, bye.